All right, I'd like to start by considering the child under 6. And there are many characteristics of the child of this age in their religious life, but one that is outstanding is the quality of joy. And that joy is based on their ability to be in relationship with God and to love God and to receive the love of God. Dr. Sophia Cavalletti, who was my teacher in preparing me to be with young children, in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, wrote this about the child's joy. Children are very capable of enjoying the presence of God. They are able to give themselves totally to God's love. It is only before the age of 6 that children are completely inside this joy. The birth of the religious person occurs through the enjoyment of God's love. The second foundation of the child's joy in God is that they are unencumbered by moral issues. So the moral child, in a sense, is born at age 6. Their interest in right and wrong, their ability to understand right and wrong. We'll talk about that later. But before 6, it's not a concern. It's not a category they think in. And so those of us who think religion is about how we behave and what we do would say, well, then there is no religious life before age 6. But in fact, it's the foundation of the religious life. What we do and how we live is rooted in our relationship with God, which the child is totally capable of. And they're just not thinking in terms of, what does God want me to do yet? That's not their concern. And so they enjoy God without worrying about that, without fear, any fear around that. So we might think of these first 6 years when the child is living inside the joy of God as a kind of spiritual womb for the spiritual person that's going to grow. When we talk about the quality of the joy of the child, Dr. Cavalletti quotes a person named MC. She doesn't give her complete name, but who had a mystical moment about the age of 5 or 6. And this is part of her memory of that moment. I was experiencing an absolute plenitude of joy, an astonishing joy. A kind of enthusiasm of joy invaded me. I was all aflame in the luminosity of happiness so intense and complete that I was immobilized by the feeling in a state that remains in my memory as one of perfect satisfaction and absolute union. So some of the key words from that quote that help point us to the quality of joy of the young child is all-encompassing. It includes their heart, their body, their mind. One child, after a long prayer by herself, went up to Dr. Cavalletti and said, "My body is happy." Another word in that quote is aflame, so they're on fire with joy. It's consuming in that kind of way. Another word was satisfaction. And finally, she used the word union, absolute union. We are concerned as adults, parents and ministers of young children, about how we can support their spiritual life and nurture this joy. And I think the first thing with all of the characteristics that I'll be talking about is to say we're not teaching it, we're not giving it to them, we're only nurturing what is already there. And this joy is nurtured in the proclamation of the love of God. So that will be through the parable of the Good Shepherd. That will be through the incarnation and the nativity. There is a word, I think it's the best word to teach young children in prayer, and that's the word Alleluia. I think that completely catches their joy and gives them a way to express it. And so I with my young children, we just sang Alleluia. We said Alleluia. We used it a lot. And I had a 2-year-old at one point and a younger child, Annie, who was just learning to talk. And Kevin, the older one, went up to Annie one day and he said, Annie, Alleluia. It was the only word he ever taught her. He talked around her all the time, but he never tried to teach her a word, except for that word, Alleluia. It's a good word to give children. And finally, I would like to encourage you to sing. Sing with your children. Singing is a wonderful expression of the joy of the child. And so whatever the songs are in your church or in your home that can give voice to the joy, singing is a wonderful way for the child to pray alone or with you. Finally, I'd like to say that we have moved away, we who are older, we adults have moved away from this time of joy in our spiritual life. And we have covered it over, perhaps, with concerns of right and wrong, or concerns about the politics of our church, and so on and so forth. And we don't want to be the model for children's joy. We want them to be the model for our joy. And so if as much as possible we enter into their spiritual life, we observe their spiritual life, we live their relationship with God with them rather than making them live our relationship with us, we get reconnected to the joy that's at the heart of our own relationship with God. And that's one of the gifts of children for us.